Another type of experiment that we're going to talk about in this particular class is something called a matched pairs design. This is the treatments are given to two groups that can be matched up with each other in some way. So one example would be to measure the effectiveness of a muscle relaxer cream on the right arm and the left arm of individuals. So whether we put two different ones on the two different arms, or maybe one gets the muscle relaxer cream and the other one gets a placebo, and we measure the difference between them. So we've got two measurements here on the same individual. And then for each individual, you can match up their right arm measurement with their left arm to see if there's a difference. Okay, another example of this would be before and after experiments, such as weight before and after some sort of diet plan. Okay, so for matched pairs, we have two measurements of the same variable on the same or matched objects. So in the two examples they gave here, we would have had two measurements on the same individual, before and after on the same individual here. Here there's one on the right arm and the left arm, so again, two measurements on the same individual. Another common group of people used for matched pairs designs are twins, where we would put one identical twin in one group and the other identical twin in the other treatment group. So again, they're not the same person, but basically genetically the same, so we consider that also as two measurements on the same individual. So no matter which experiment type you conduct, you should always consider the following. So the first thing here listed is replication. So this is repetition of an experiment on more than one subject, so you can make sure that the sample is large enough to distinguish true effects from random effects. It's also the ability for someone else to duplicate the results of the experiment. So it's always funny to go out and look at elementary school science fair projects, especially ones where they do plants, where they'll plant one plant and not talk to it, and they'll plant another plant and they'll talk to it, and then the one that they talked to grew taller because it's lacking replication. So when you plant two plants, before you do anything to them, at the end of the day, one of them's probably going to grow a little bit taller than the other, so it's like 50-50 chance already that the one you're going to talk to is going to grow taller. So in that case, it would be better, if you had 30 plants that you didn't talk to and 30 plants that you did, and again, if the 30 plants that you did talk to all grew taller, then that's some evidence that the talking helped. So replication, and we're going to get into more with sample size and things later in the course. Okay. Another one is a blind study. This is where the individual does not know which treatment they are getting, or if they're getting the treatment or a placebo. So oftentimes in a lot of medical studies, the doctor will know whether you're getting the actual treatment or a placebo, or which treatment you're receiving, but the individual does not. In other studies, like the one that I mentioned to you earlier with the polio vaccine, was a double-blind study. This was where neither the individual nor the researcher, in this case the doctors who were administering it, know who is getting which treatment, or who is getting the treatment and who is getting the placebo. Okay, in this case, each of the vials that the kids were given, there was a recorded number that they recorded and sent back to the CDC. And the CDC knew which of those vials was actually a placebo and which ones had the actual polio vaccine. So at the time, the individual receiving it and the doctor administering it, neither of them knew who was getting which. Okay, so this is important so that there can be no bias created by either the individual or the researcher. Just like the placebo effect with individuals when they think they're receiving a treatment, there's also some effect by the doctor as well, that they convey a message to you, whether they try to or not, and thinking that, if they know that you're getting the treatment, that they kind of almost, tell you you're getting better, versus ones who are getting the placebo. So a double-blind study where neither the individual nor the researcher doctor knows who's getting what.